It's Monday, December 23rd, 2024. I'm Dr. Omekongo Debinga, filling in for Roland Martin, who is taking some much needed days off. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. President Joe Biden commutes the death sentence of nearly every prisoner on the federal government's death row. We'll talk to NAACP's Chief of Policy and Legislative Affairs about the significance of Biden's decision. The House Ethics Committee released a long-awaited report on its investigation into former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. We'll discuss the findings. House Speaker Mike Johnson has been warned. The Democrats will not save you this time. We have lost some giants in sports, entertainment, and civil rights. We'll celebrate the lives of Rickey Henderson, Art Evans, and Vincent Fort. Don't know what to get your loved one for Christmas? How about ownership in a Black-owned tech company? Isaac Hayes, founder of Fanbase, will discuss the last push for investors in 2024. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
President Joe Biden commuted the sentences for 37 out of 40 federal inmates on death row, converting them to life in prison without parole. These commutations are sure to frustrate Trump's plans to resume federal executions. Unlike executive orders, a president's successor cannot reverse clemency decisions. Trump restarted federal executions after a nearly 20-year pause during his first term in office. Biden put federal executions on hold when he took office in January 2021. The president released this statement about why he commuted the sentences, stating, "I've dedicated my career to reducing violent crime and ensuring a fair and effective justice system. Today, I am commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 individuals on federal death row to life sentences without the possibility of parole. These commutations are consistent with the moratorium my administration has imposed on federal executions in cases other than terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. Make no mistake, I condemn these murders, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss. But guided by my conscience and my experience as a public defender, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, vice president, and now president, I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted." Earlier this month, Biden commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 people and pardoned 39 more convicted of non-violent crimes. He also issued a full and unconditional pardon of his son, Hunter Biden. Monday's decision does not apply to cases of terrorism or hate-motivated mass murder. It leaves out three of the most well-known men on federal death row. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, convicted for his involvement in the bombing at the Boston Marathon finish line in 2013. Dylan Roof, convicted for the shooting spree at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. And Robert Bowers, who was convicted for the mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018. Joining me now is Patrice Willoughby, NAACP's Chief of Policy and Legislative Affairs. Patrice, I'm so happy that you're joining us tonight. And for many people out there, some are frustrated, but for many people who have been following this is a promise that has been kept for Biden that he fulfilled.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having me this evening. We are extremely happy and thankful that the president has commuted these sentences because when the Biden-Harris administration came into office, they focused on equity. And we know that there is a lack of equity throughout the criminal justice system, which really has affected Black communities much more so than anyone else. And so it's only right that at this point, right before the holidays, that the president takes steps to commute these death sentences to life.
And what do you say to people who feel like, whoa, he's just trying to make up for what he did with Hunter Biden, and he's just trying to get people to not really pay attention? For many of us who are familiar with what Biden is talking about, he's always been passionate about this because he stopped this as soon as he came into office. What do you say to people who say that this is just a last minute thing and he's trying to cover up his other pardons?
Well, I say this, we understand a lot more about criminal justice now than was in 1994 when the crime bill was enacted. And we also know that that bill resulted in a large number of Black folks who were caught up in the criminal justice system. We are only 14% of the population, but 40% of the federal prison population. And in taking this step, the president is continuing what began with advocacy and activism that was trying to do things like equalize the crack to powder sentencing disparity, as well as do the unfinished business of the 2018 First Step Act, so that a lot of the people that would have received shorter sentences under that bill are still serving long sentences. So this is just the president moving toward justice and correcting some of the wrongs that have been done.
And what does a step like this look like in the lives of of real families who are pretty much assured that under Trump they were absolutely going to lose their family member should these executions have gone through?
I think it's a really sad legacy that when the last president came into office, one of the things he focused on was executing people. We know that there are sentencing disparities and that Black people receive longer sentences than white people for similar crimes, and that's reflected in the federal prison system as well. And so for those people who received either disproportionately long sentences or who were on death row and might have resulted in having a lighter sentence or life in prison, it's going to mean the world to their families for their sentences to be commuted.
And how do you feel when you think about some of the international pressure that was on Biden? I mean, the Pope spoke out about this. So many different advocacy organizations spoke out about this. Do you feel like this is something that was weighing heavily on Biden's conscience because of that international pressure, or this is just something he was going to stay consistent with regardless of what was happening outside of what people were saying?
The president is a person of faith. Many of us are people of faith. And I think that there's widespread recognition around the world. We incarcerate more people. We are one of the only countries that still has a federal death penalty. And there's a lot of question as to whether or not the state should be putting people to death. And so I think during this very holy time of the year in the Judeo-Christian tradition, that it's a really important time for the president, and in recognition of his faith and in the redemptive power of forgiveness, as well as coupled with correction, that people should be taken off of death row and receive life imprisonment.
And taking it outside of death row, what are your thoughts about some of Biden's pardons that already? I mean, outside of Hunter Biden, people can talk about that forever, but there have been some other ones that some people consider controversial, such as a judge in Pennsylvania, who people say was, selling convictions and the like. What do you think about Biden's overall pardon process? Have you been pleased with it? Is there more that needs to be done? How do you see it?
Well, I think that there's a lot more that can be done, and we hope that the administration will continue with clemency actions until they are out of office. I think that, you're never going to please everyone. We could talk about Hunter Biden's pardon, but the fact is that was a politically inspired prosecution. We can talk about the judge. But that is what it is. What's important is that there are over 7,000 cases that the pardon attorney at the Department of Justice has already reviewed. Nonviolent offenses and people who are just waiting to have their sentence either commuted or pardoned. They've been vetted already, and there's a lot more that can be done. What we saw, the first step to bring down that crack powder. Garland then issued a charging memo and equalized sentencing. But there are still people who did not receive the benefit of that 2018 bill. And so they deserve justice as well. And we are hoping that the administration goes forward to give clemency to that large group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patrice, if you don't mind, I have the panel that wants to get in, but we're going to take a quick break if you don't mind, because they definitely have some questions that they would like to pose to you as well. Awesome. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
I had been trying to get a record deal for a long time. When I finally got signed to the Motown record label in 2003, I was 34, 35 years old. And up until that time, I had been trying to get record deals the traditional way. You record your demo, you record your music, and you send it, to the record labels, or maybe a friend of a friend knows somebody that works for, the record label. And really chemistry that was my last ditch effort at being in the music business.
How long have you been trying?
I've been trying since I was a teenager.
Wow.
And I'm grateful that it didn't. I'm grateful that it happened when it happened, because I wasn't prepared, as a teenager to embrace all that comes with a career in the music industry.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free-to-download, free-to-use, next-generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you helped build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
Hey, this is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect Anything less? Watch what happens next.
We are back with Patrice Willoughby with the NAACP, and I want to bring in my panel. I have Joe Richardson, who's a civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles, Dr. Julian Malveaux, economist and author out of DC, and Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice with the EPA, also out of Washington, DC. Joe, the first question is for you.
Kind of a two-part question to help people with their awareness. The NAACP doesn't stop doing work during Republican administrations. So talk a little bit about the battlegrounds where your work will take you during this next 4 years, as well as helping people understand from an awareness standpoint how important it is to be aware of what's going on as it pertains to these particular issues, these particular criminal justice issues, as well as how people can be supportive of your organization, which has a policy wing, which has a legal work wing. Educate us in a way that will allow us to really go forward and say, okay, here's how we need to continue to help, and not just be back and forth with NAACP and similar organizations.
Well, you're absolutely right. The fight never stops, and it hasn't since 1909. We are very concerned about the incoming administration's focus, expressed through Project 2025, which is an anti-Black agenda, which is focused on rolling back all of the civil rights progress that has been made since the inception of the NAACP. And so naacp.org is our website. We have a number of tabs that relate to issues and membership. We are an organization where everyone has the opportunity to offer their ideas during the year and to have those ideas adopted as part of our resolutions process. We are a bottom-up organization. That having been said, we watch the federal, we watch the state, and we watch local legislatures, because there are many anti-progress initiatives that have been seeded from the federal level down into the states. And so when you hear all of this talk about, let's send it back to the states, this is why we had federal law developed. This is why we have civil rights laws in place. And that is to guarantee the civil rights that are enumerated in the Constitution and that we are due and that we have worked to secure over the years.
Thank you.
Julian?
Yes, since I appreciate the work the NAACP is doing at this time, it's so very necessary. Questions about the pardons and clemencies. How many people are eligible to pardon? Could Biden do, as Gerald Ford did for draft dodgers, a blanket pardon? Let's say for non-violent drug offenders, for any number of categories. I appreciate the 1,500 and then the 37. But it doesn't seem to go far enough when we look at what we're facing, especially with the incoming administration. So what's the universe of people that Biden could pardon, and why would he or not do so?
Well, Dr. Malveaux, that's a really great question. There are at least 7,000 people who have applied for clemency of some type. And that's either to have a pardon where the legal liability is released, or to have their sentence commuted. That is either made subject to what they've already served, or have it wiped out, or have it reduced. Of those 7,000, we know that there are bulk of those are nonviolent offenses, because the pardon attorney has already reviewed them, and he could do a blanket clemency for nonviolent offenses. So, for example, we know that there has been a disproportionate focus on cannabis and marijuana before medical marijuana and then adult use was normalized in many states. There are still people behind bars serving sentences for nonviolent marijuana, cannabis offenses. They should not be in prison anymore. There are people who should be released on compassionate release because the federal prison system is characterized with a lot of very long sentences, as well as mandatory minimum sentences, with a lot of folks serving time that is over 20 years of age, or 20 years in length. And so there are older people who don't pose any type of threat, who are still in federal prison. And, you know, there are multiple categories of these nonviolent offenses that the president could wipe out. Why he doesn't do it? Who knows? You know, I think that he's taken a really good step today, and we are happy about the death row commutations, but there is a lot more that can be done with just the swoop of a pen.
Thank you.
Mustafa.
Yeah. It's great to see everybody. You know, my question is around the history of pardons, especially in relationship to our communities. And often folks will sometimes think that we disproportionately are being given opportunities. Could you talk a little bit about, you know, for the various folks, the various groups that are out there, Black folks, white folks, Latino folks, so forth and so on, how we end up benefiting from pardons, or if it's, you know, pretty much across the board for folks?
Well, you know, we are disproportionately in the criminal justice system. And so when pardons and commutations are granted, it stands to reason that we would receive, Black people would receive a great number of them because, for example, 14% of the population, 40% of the federal prison population. I mean, Black men, for example, are 65% more likely to be charged with offenses that carry a mandatory minimum sentence. 53% of men serving sentences of 20 plus years for drug offenses are in federal prison. And so Black men also receive sentences that are 13% longer than their white counterparts. I mean, these are the miscarriages of justice in the criminal justice system. So I wouldn't even characterize it that we're receiving disproportionate benefit. It is, we have suffered disproportionate harm. And the president, in doing these clemency actions, you know, any clemency action is going to result in that harm being mitigated. And so that is really the issue that we should focus on. Why is the criminal justice system so focused on and negatively impacting Black communities? I mean, we know, looking at history, but we should all be focused on eradicating that disparity.
Patrice Willoughby, NAACP's Chief of Policy and Legislative Affairs. Thank you so much for your time today, and please keep us posted on your efforts so we can continue to platform your work as well with the NAACP.
Thank you so much for having, and everyone have a good holiday.
Thank you so much. And we'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Isaac Gaetz III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free-to-download, free-to-use, next-generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I was challenged by my uncle early on, before I even had a career. Like, I was maybe 8 years old, and my uncle said, "What do you want to do?" And I told him I wanted to be a rapper. And he said, "Okay, well, I don't know anything about the music business, so what you should do is learn everything there is to know about the music business, and I'll make sure that you have the resources to push you through." And so I went and bought books, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, Hit Me In. I just went and bought a bunch of books and just started reading as a 10-year-old, just reading. And so I learned, all things licensing, mechanical rights. I learned about publishing, learned about how composition is broke up into two pieces, the writer's portion and the producer's portion. But by the time I actually learned, I came back and I was ready to okay, I got it. He would go into prison. So I had all this information.
All this knowledge.
All this knowledge.
You like, well, what am I supposed to do with it now?
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Cyrus, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood show and the Roland Martin show? Well, whatever show it's going to be good.
The House Ethics Committee released an explosive report detailing its investigation of sexual misconduct allegations against MAGA Republican ex-Representative Matt Gaetz. The Florida Republican abruptly resigned from Congress in November while being considered for Attorney General in the upcoming Trump administration. The 37-page report, released Monday, revealed that Gaetz regularly paid for sex, including with a 17-year-old girl, from at least 2017 when he began serving in the House until 2020. It also found that he accepted impermissible gifts, including lodging and transportation in 2018 during a trip to the Bahamas. Investigators also concluded that Gaetz used or possessed cocaine and ecstasy between 2017 and 2019. The Ethics Committee, comprised of 5 lawmakers from each party, agreed to release the report despite Gaetz's departure from the chamber. Before the committee made the report public, Gaetz asked a federal judge Monday to block its release. Gaetz, who has denied all wrongdoing, claimed making the report public would violate the committee's internal rules to stop investigating House lawmakers once they leave Congress, violating his constitutional due process. Mustafa, my man. Damn. I mean, bro, as somebody who's been up on the Hill, who's been around these folks in terms of the reports and the process and all of that, what do you make of, one, the fact that they kind of broke a little bit of protocol in publishing this report after he left, and then your thoughts about the overall report in general?
Well, they knew that the report was going to eventually get out. And so they're trying to actually CYA, right? And everybody knows what that actually means, because how do you, as the ethics committee, allow an individual who has all these various types of charges against them, all these accusations against them that have been, there's a lot of proof that's there. I'll just say it that way, but we still have to say they're alleged since there hasn't been an actual trial in place. But for the ethics committee, right, to actually allow this individual to continue to sit there, to allow someone who has the charges against them of like statutory rape, drug use, illicit uses of funds, all these different types of things that have gotten many members of Congress kicked out. And since I worked there, I've seen some of the things that went on that were very much less egregious than this, and the individuals whose careers were actually destroyed. So that's one side. The other side of it is, let's just have real talk. There is absolutely no way that the Trump administration did not know what was inside of that report. And for them to then be willing to give the opportunity for this individual to have one of the most significant positions inside of an administration with huge amounts of power to even be considered. So that says something about, the Trump administration and where they currently are and the types of individuals. We've seen some of the other folks, of course, who have numerous different types of charges against them, who have all these different allegations that they're dealing with. And then we'll find, we'll close out with him as an individual, and knowing that you are participating in these, allegedly participating in these types of behaviors with underage minors, with drugs, with all these different types of things. You should have removed yourself, one, from the position that Trump was trying to give you. Two, you should have left Congress a long time ago, and not because you got pushed out because you knew this information was finally going to happen. So we already know that if this was a person of color, that they would have run out of town a long time ago, carrying this type of weight and these types of situations that, have caused probably lots of young ladies significant pain, both mentally and all the other things that come along with that, along with just, you just continue to sully what happens on Capitol Hill. It's just amazing that the ethics committee would fall so short. I should say I never worked for the ethics committee. I did work for John Conyers when he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee, but I had the opportunity to work with all the various committees to understand how they do things, what, their mandates are, and to see how far we continue to fall is just mind-blowing.
Well, I mean, speaking of judiciary, Joe, I mean, we're just talking about laws in general. I mean, I'm reading things about something called the CAT Act and about transporting people across borders and the like. Joe, from your legal mindset, how is it that somebody can come this far and not receive any type of charge? I mean, we talk about the DOJ and how we feel like they botched this, but this stuff has been known. It was going on for 3-4 years, from cocaine to transporting girls to the 17-year-old. How does this guy go untouched?
It's an interesting question. And Dr. Dominga, to take it to another place, we still might not know if he hadn't done the thing that he did getting rid of Kevin McCarthy. That got him on the wrong side of a few people, not everybody necessarily, but enough where, Republicans got him to eat their own mode. And really, so if it wasn't for that, we still might not know it. He's not the only person in Congress that's dirty. He's not the only person in Congress that likes to have a good time and is crazy and cool and into all of the stuff he's into. That's what is really the shame of it. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, okay, does he still have a career? There's been talk about him, running for Senate to replace Marco Rubio. Would there be support for that? I wouldn't think so. But at the same time, if there's not support for it, it's not necessarily because of what he did. That's what's crazy about it. That's the crazy irony of it, is that he basically aired dirty laundry and getting Kevin McCarthy gotten rid of because Kevin McCarthy was so in the box, et cetera, wanted to be speaker all his life. And because he helped undermine him there's some people that are in that space that are a little less loyal. I think you're right about the CYA piece. But the idea that the reason why he's gotten away with these things as long as he has, if he never gets prosecuted, like right now, some prosecutor in Florida, U.S. attorney, somebody ought to be jumping on this. But with this administration coming in, that's probably not going to happen on the federal side, unless it's a lying guy who probably will get a call directly from Stephen Miller or whoever it is. Or, if it's somebody in the state, well, still kind of DeSantis' state. We'll have to see what happens with that. So if nothing happens, it'll be the same reason nothing has happened, right? Because there's still these guys. You still got the Fox Garden, the hen house on a large scale, and perhaps to their mind, they've already done the retaliatory thing that they were going to do because he was on the wrong side of McCarthy.
So Julian, we have this with Matt Gaetz, and it seems like, going off of what Joe said, it's really, he didn't get pushed out because of all of this stuff. It's just that people didn't like him, which would make sense because Pete Hegseth is still there, who has similar accusations against him. And then you have Robert Kennedy, who has some similar charges against him as well. A little bit different, but things that relate to doing things to women. What are your thoughts about this incoming administration and the character that some of these nominees reflect, as you reflect on this report that was released as well?
Let's just begin at the beginning, which is how many felony convictions, having been convicted of improper sexual behavior towards E. Jean Carroll. We can go down the list. So the rot starts at the top, and it comes trickling down. The rot is an administration that has no regard for women. In fact, in the middle of all these nominations coming through, I said, isn't a requirement to be a sexual offender in order to be in the Trump cabinet?
Wow.
I mean, is this something that you must have in your record? Is that why you have so few women and so few black folks in your projected cabinet? It's just a thought. I'm not concluding. I'm not disrespecting. I'm just saying. But in any case, when we look at Gaetz, he has been a flamboyant bad boy, not just a bad boy. I mean, you brothers are gonna beat me up, but I basically think that most men are hoes. They can't help themselves. Most men are hoes. Having said,
Hey, slow down. Hey,
hey, I've been around the block a few times. I'm just saying, y'all. But most of them are discreet hoes. So everybody that know all their business, this boy was bragging about all the stuff he had been doing. In addition to the fact that he alienates so many people, I'm not surprised they released a report, but note this about releasing the report. At least one Republican had to agree with the Democrats if this was partisan. At least one Republican had to agree. So there's something else going on here. I haven't read the stuff, but I've heard the folks commenting and the conclusions, and they're saying it's one 17-year-old. Well, if there's one, there's probably more than one because, again, hoes don't have no discretion. So they just do what they do to everybody. Look at the incoming president and then go on down the list. Again, I'm glad the report came out. I don't know how much of a difference it will make. I'm concerned that Governor DeSantis I don't know about anything about his business, but I know that he is under the incoming president's thumb. So if the incoming president pushes him to appoint Gaetz, he may do it. You see that Lara Trump has dropped out. She said she wants to be a senator, and now she doesn't. So they're going to give her something. And therefore, that still leaves that space open with a gubernatorial appointment before a special election. So I'm not surprised at anything. Here we go again. The worst part of it, though, is that this rot is not just on the R side. We have similar rot on the D side. And the issue is how do we get rid of all of the rot so that we can have efficient, effective government that has integrity? That's the question.
And I think that's a great question. As you talk about the rot, it's an increasing charge for journalists to make sure that they're doing their job in 2025. We know there are going to be more attacks on them than ever before. But the reports like this, if they come out based on the investigative work that's done, it can actually embolden a lot of Republicans to actually do the right thing. But something you said, Julian, which concerns me, is that this vote was done anonymously. If it was public, would this report have actually come out? Because some of these Republicans are just spineless. But it's out there, and we have to continue to make sure that we're covering the fallout from this, because they're going to try to sweep it under the rug really quickly. And we don't know where Matt Gaetz is going, but we know that the Black Star Network is going to be following to make sure people know as well. Just make sure you all to stay tuned right here, because you're going to get all of the good from all of us. And we are going to be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
But y'all, when you're on that stage, or when you're and you're seeing 2 and 3 or 4 generations in the audience, that's got to speak to you about the power of what y'all have become.
Oh, most definitely. I think we were doing our show before our break, and remember, I was watching this kid. I could not take my eyes off him because he was about 9 or so. He was sitting in the front row with his
over on the right-hand side. Yes.
I was amazed that this kid knew everything, and I was like tripping to see how many songs this kid actually knew.
And he knew them all.
And he knew them all. We had to go over there and bring him on stage and take a picture with him, at the end of the show and stuff, because it was just that amazing. It's like, this is crazy.
The music travels everywhere, like what Philip was saying, seeing this young kid. Then you hear our songs on commercials, cold commercials. Then you have the younger ones that hear our music in animation.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
House Democrats are sending an early warning signal to Speaker Mike Johnson that he shouldn't count on them to rescue him again. Johnson will have the barest of majorities next year, and he's facing growing unrest within the Republican conference. With a majority as narrow as 219 to 215, Johnson may only be able to afford to lose one vote. Kentucky Republican congressman has said he will vote against Johnson's reelection as Speaker on January 3rd, with several other Republicans saying they are undecided. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries says Johnson shouldn't be looking at Democrats to save him this time.
There has been questions about whether Mike Johnson is at risk of not being the Speaker of the House in a couple of weeks. What do you think?
I think that's a real risk, and there will be no Democrats available to save him or the extreme MAGA Republicans from themselves based on the breaching of a bipartisan agreement that reflected priorities that were good for the American people.
Julian, when you see what's happening right now with the Democrats, some people are saying this is basically the Democrats' house because nothing is going to happen without their approval because Mike Johnson doesn't have any confidence of many other Republicans. And so, but if he's turning towards Hakeem Jeffries again to help bail him out, then people are basically saying, you know, we got President Musk and we pretty much got House Speaker Jeffries. How do you see how the Democrats are handling this?
I think that Hakeem Jeffries is an amazing leader. I think that most of the Democrats and the caucus, really all, even the centrists, are basically. I heard one man say, "You know, I'm Team Jeffries. I'm gonna take cues from leadership." So what that means is that there are very few opportunities for Johnson to get anything through. He's being pushed. I feel sorry for the man, kind of. I mean, he's being pushed from his right and from his far right, and then he has somebody who purchased a co-presidency. He paid to be co-president. And given that, what do we expect to have happen when it gets down to crunch time? Right now, Republicans can afford to lose 1 or 2 votes. And yet there are a couple of House races still to be called. I mean, if God is good, Democrats pick up another seat or 2, and it's all over but the shout. And basically, that's what, you know, the Republican Party has been in disarray for a very long time. And their 15-vote nonsense around Kevin McCarthy lets you know how crazy they are or how unorganized they are. The task forces with the Democrats who are going lockstep behind Hakeem Jeffries. And if they're not careful, Republicans aren't careful, Hakeem could still end up as a speaker because that 1 or 2 Republicans vote for him and see what happens. So the Republican Party has been purchased by oligarchs, and they are basically getting returns on the investment from oligarchs. Meanwhile, Democrats have been disciplined. The discipline is not going to be enough. This is something that has to be fought tooth and nail. Keeping my people in the light. Keeping my people in the light.
So, Mustafa, one of my concerns is that the Democrats may have, well, what if they can't keep their word? So say the whole speaker vote comes up again, and there's somebody who is more extreme than Speaker Johnson, who may want to come up, somebody, I don't know, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene or something. And the only way that this gets prevented from happening is Democrats decide to go against go and support Mike Johnson. And just, similar to last week, how, they saved the country by avoiding the shutdown. Are you concerned about that? Do you feel like Democrats should just hold the line regardless? How do you see it from your insider perspective? Is this going to be something that a promise they're going to have trouble keeping?
Well, yeah, they may have trouble keeping it. I mean, politics is about strategy if you're doing it properly, and that means that you have to make the best decisions in the moment that you have. Of course, hopefully you're already thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead about what the possibilities are. But that's what this is all about. Folks try and complicate this. It is about strategy. It is about deciding which is the best move in the moment and how it will play out over time. And you got to do a better job of also just educating folks about how all this stuff actually plays out on Capitol Hill and in state houses. But we're talking about Capitol Hill right now. So, there's going to be some very tough decisions, like Julian said, that folks are going to have to make. But you have to make sure that your base understands why you're making those decisions and what the ultimate long-term goal is. So over this next 2 years, there'll be tough decisions. But if folks get their act together, then they have an opportunity during the midterms to, kind of balance out the equation, if you will.
And so, Joe, thinking about that, Mustafa mentioned the midterms. Given what you've seen from the Democrats so far, we can talk about the House, we're talking about the Senate, we're talking about the House specifically now, but you can take it wherever you want. How optimistic are you about how organized the Democrats are going to be in fighting as we work towards the midterm election? Because, the Republicans, even though they don't have a mandate, they're talking about a mandate. They're talking about, we got super control of the House, but actually when Trump takes office, he's going to lose a couple more seats because of his appointees. So he actually doesn't have that mandate. How do you see what the Democrats are doing going forward as we work towards the midterms? Are you optimistic, or are you concerned in any way, shape, or form?
I'm optimistic as it pertains to the House. I think that we certainly have an opportunity, and frankly, it wouldn't take much. Connecting to the previous question, I think that you have to let the Republicans make their mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. Johnson's still wet behind the ears. He should never have been Speaker. There's one part of him that may understand the realities of governing. That's why he made that bipartisan deal. And then there's the other part of him that will do whatever Trump says, which is why he pulled out of the deal. But Mike Johnson is the one that has to survive in the House. Trump is not the one that has to do that, even though he's affected by what happens, or what in this case may not happen in the House. So I like their chances, the Democrats' chances to take the House back, just because if not any other thing, the Republicans are not going to be on the same page. They're already indicated that. They're already fighting about power they don't quite have yet, right? Now, that being said, Democrats also have to do what they need to do so that folks understand why they're doing what they're doing. And when things go bad in the House, the Republicans have to be able to own it. So in other words, the Democrats can't step on each other. They have to stay on the same page so that the Republicans rise or fall with what they actually do in the House. The Democrats don't always do the best job of messaging, frankly, getting it out to people. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. Here's where we are. We don't have the majority, but we are not standing for X or Y or Z. And so hopefully they can do the things they need to do so that their base understands why they make every move that they make. And so that if the Republicans are the ones to cross counsel, to step on each other and actually stop the wheels of government from moving, then they are the ones that suffer a political consequence for it.
And you're absolutely right about the messaging. And this, like you said, it could be a great time for Democrats to really stay organized and strike. I mean, you got President Musk and Vice President Trump, and I don't know, Prime Minister Vance. No one knows where he is. The seeds right now. So this is really a great time, for Democrats to stay organized. And, let's hope that that's something that happens, because if we don't, if we don't get these midterms, I don't know what's going to happen over these next 4 years. So let's see what happens. If we're going to keep people posted right here on the Black Star Network. And we're going to be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I was challenged by my uncle early on, before I even had a career. Like, I was maybe 8 years old, and my uncle said, "What do you want to do?" And I told him I wanted to be a rapper. And he said, "Okay, well, I don't know anything about the music business, so what you should do is learn everything there is to know about the music business, and I'll make sure that you have the resources to push you through." And so I went and bought books, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, hit me in. I just went and bought a bunch of books, just started reading as a 10-year-old, just reading. And so I learned, all things licensing, mechanical rights. I learned about publishing, learned about how composition is broke up into two pieces, the writer's portion and the producer's portion. But by the time I actually learned, I came back and I was ready to okay, I got it. He was going to prison. So I had all this information.
All this knowledge.
All this knowledge.
You like, well, what I'm going to do with it now?
This is Tamala Mann.
And this is David Mann. And you're watching Roland Martin
Unfiltered.
Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson, baseball's stolen base king, has died at age 65. Henderson, who would have turned 66 on Christmas Day, died Friday in Oakland, California. Henderson had a lengthy list of accolades and accomplishments over his 25-year career: an MVP, 10 All-Star selections, 2 World Series titles, and a Gold Glove Award. However, it was stealing bases where Henderson made his name and dominated the sport like no other. He broke through of 100 steals in his first full season in the majors. In 1980, topping Ty Cobb's AL single-season record with Billy Martin's Billy Ball Oakland Athletics. He broke Lou Brock's single-season record of 118 by stealing 130 bases in 1982 and led the league in steals for 7 straight seasons and 12 overall. Henderson surpassed Brock's career record when he stole his 939th base on May 1st, 1991 for Oakland and famously pulled third base out of the ground. Henderson finished his career with 1,406 steals. His 468 steal edge over Brock matches the margin between Brock and Jimmy Rollins, who is in 46th place with 470. Mustafa, doesn't get much greater than this.
No, Rickey was the truth. That's why they call him the man of steel. I know when I was coming up playing baseball, he was one of the folks that I like to try and emulate myself after, or try just to be like him. He was just an amazing individual. And if you talk to folks, not only was he just incredible on the field, which is important, right? Because people are watching sports for a reason, watching baseball for a reason, but equally so, people talk glowingly about him off the field. And that to me really is what an icon is, or, someone who can be a hero to folks, because it's not just about that athletic performance. it is also about who you are as a person. How do you give back to the community that lives on long after, you're gone? So rest in peace to him. And thank you, Rickey, for everything that you did for so many young, both boys and girls coming up who wanted to be great baseball players like you.
And Joe, how do you feel when you see stories like this? It's so sad. I stopped a little bit as I was reading because, we just think about another great loss. And then I just think about sometimes as I'm reading how many young people are going to know this person. And, if it's not for the Black Star Network and people like what we do, how many people are going to know about this legend? That kind of makes me sad, but we still press on and make sure that we acknowledge our new ancestors regardless.
Yeah, for me, I was a fan of Rickey Henderson because I decided not to be a Dodgers fan. I was going to be an A's fan with Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco and Dennis Eckersley and all of these guys in the mid to late 80s. And I think that, Rickey Henderson was a guy that, statistically speaking, he stole so many bases that when he got on base, it's more likely during the course of the game that he was going to steal a base than that he wasn't. And so now the pitchers had to be focused, had to find a way to pitch, get all the way through, stay in the strike zone when you had this guy that was probably going to steal a base. The next point that I'll make is, to your point, this is what's really important for us, Doctor, to really realize Black folks aren't coming up and playing baseball as much as they used to. Not African Americans, anyway. Perhaps some, from the Caribbean, et cetera, Afro-Latino, et cetera. But Rickey Henderson kind of reminds us of what is trying to become a bygone era of young African Americans getting into baseball at all. So that's one of the reasons that's really important for us to tell his story and stories of others like him. We don't have no problems with brothers playing basketball. Okay. We got that. Okay. But there's a lot less African Americans playing baseball. And so we really need to be reminded of his story and all the great things that he did. He could have hit more home runs if he wanted to. He could do anything, literally, but he decided to steal bases. And we got to make sure his story is told, because I think there are other Rickey Hendersons out there that are from our areas, that are from this part of the country or that part of the country or from the United States, so that African Americans can know that this is an option as well.
Yeah, and Julian, he enters the league in 1979. And people feel like they think about stories about Jackie Robinson, in decades prior, but coming out of the late 70s and the 80s, you still had issues with Black players in baseball, and yet still with all of that, he still managed to persevere and become the legend that we all knew him to be.
I'm glad you mentioned Jackie Robinson. He stands on those shoulders. Stands on the shoulders of the Jackie Robinsons. And I think we don't talk about that enough either. The ceiling, whatever, glass ceiling, but the barriers, the hurdles were cleared then, but the hurdles remain. And the sports hurdles began really with baseball. Jackie Robinson's victory made it possible for the NFL to do more than they were doing, for the NBA to do more than they were doing, but it started with baseball. So it's really important. And then, of course, Mr. Henderson, like y'all know, I'm not a sports fan, but I was very aware of his records because I'm from San Francisco and, Oakland. All that base stealing, it was just quite delicious. Watch that brother just steal a base, hold it up, like, yang, 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 yang. So in addition to just being, like a great human being, a great baseball icon, he had the sense of humor that I think a lot of people in sports don't have. When you compare some of his press conferences to some of these sort of angry, uptight press conferences you see these days, you have to ask yourself, we have to ask ourselves constantly as Black people, how do we maintain the joy, even in the face of the pain? How do we maintain the joy, even with the discriminatory barriers? And he broke those barriers, but he kept a smile on his face. Rest in power, my brother.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Rest in power. A new ancestor, Rickey Henderson. Wishing you and your family all of the best, particularly during this time as we honor you and respect you right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we will be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I was challenged by my uncle early on before I even had a career. Like I was maybe 8 years old, and my uncle said, "What do you want to do?" And I told him I wanted to be a rapper. And he said, "Okay, well, I don't know anything about the music business, so what you should do is learn everything there is to know about the music business, and I'll make sure that you have the resources to push you through." And so I went and bought books, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, Hit Me In. I just went and bought a bunch of books and just started reading as a 10-year-old, just reading. And so I learned, all things licensing, mechanical rights. I learned about publishing, learned about how composition is broke up into two pieces, the writer's portion and the producer's portion. But by the time I actually learned, I came back and I was ready to okay, I got it. He would go into prison. So I had all this information.
All this knowledge.
All this knowledge.
You like, well, what I'm going to do with it now?
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
But y'all, when you're on that stage or when you're and you're seeing 2 and 3, 4 generations in the audience, that's got to speak to you about the power of what y'all have become.
Oh, most definitely. I think we were doing our show before our break, and remember, I was watching this kid. I could not take my eyes off him because he was about 9 or so. He was sitting in the front row with his
over on the right hand
parents.
side. Yes.
I was amazed that this kid knew everything, and I was like tripping to see how many songs this kid actually knew,
and he knew them all.
And he knew them all. We had to go over there and bring him on stage and take a picture with him, at the end of the show and stuff, because it was just that amazing. It's like, this is crazy.
The music travels everywhere. Like what Philip was saying, seeing this young kid. Then you hear our songs on commercials, cold commercials. Then you have the younger ones that hear our music in animation.
I'm Russell L. Honoré, Lieutenant General, United States Army, retired, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Actor Art Evans, known for his roles in Die Hard 2 and A Soldier Story, passed away on Saturday. According to his representatives, the 82-year-old died due to complications from diabetes in his sleep. A Southern California native, Evans enjoyed a career spanning over 4 decades, with appearances in shows like A Different World, Family Matters, and Walker, Texas Ranger. One of his acclaimed films, A Soldier Story, earned a Best Picture nomination and 3 Academy Award nods. Art Evans is an ancestor at age 82. Vincent Fort, also Georgia's longtime champion of liberal causes, has passed away at 68 from complications of cancer. Fort represented Fulton County's 39th district from 1996 to 2017. In 2017, he was named Legislator of the Year by the Georgia Association of Educators for his work on Senate Bill 30, which aimed to increase education funding. Ford authored Georgia's first hate crimes law, which imposed harsher penalties for bias-based crimes, and the Georgia Fair Lending Act, which addressed predatory lending practices. Vincent Ford, an ancestor at age 68. And Joe, we're talking about three different people here. We talked a little bit about Mr. Henderson, but now we're talking about, Evans, and we're talking about four different areas, but impactful in what they did as well in terms of what they did for our communities.
Yeah, and I'm honored to be able to be connected with them, to call them ancestors, and to look up. And their brother Ford did some amazing, amazing things. Maybe someone that a lot of people don't necessarily know, like he's a household name, like Martin King is. But people, if you know, and you know what he, the things that he accomplished and the things that he helped pave the way for, the Stacey Abrams of the world and all of these others. As it pertains to our brother Art, every year I watch at Christmas time, I watch Die Hard 2 because it takes place at Christmas time. It's not a Christmas movie, but I love his role. His role is as Leslie Barnes. He's the guy that can fix everything in the tower. And I remember some of his key lines. I also remember his key lines from A Soldier Story when he's talking about how much Adolf Caesar's character hated the other character. But I saw it when I was so young in the theater with my mom that I didn't really understand it. But I have both of those movies on DVR, and I will be watching them both tomorrow night, remembering Brother Art and all of the wonderful, wonderful work that he did over the years.
Mustafa.
Someone sent me a meme the other day, and it had all these pictures of folks who had transitioned this year. And I just had to take a moment and just reflect. And, I'm a person who reads a lot. I'm a person who tries to follow our culture. And there was about 90% of the folks who I actually could just say their name and some of the contributions they did. And I began to think, not only about this show and how important it is and continue to put a spotlight on our people, but how we have a responsibility, whether it's in this holiday season, Kwanzaa's coming up, making sure that we are integrating for those who, who celebrate that, all the amazing folks that are both inside of our families, but also all these other individuals in the arts and politics and sports, and how we're all connected and how we have to keep their names alive. And we know that there are forces that continue to try and make sure that from our educational system that they're not brought forward. So we have a responsibility in our churches and our mosques and other houses of worship, in our civic organizations, so forth and so on. So we need to make sure, one, that we're giving folks their flowers while they're here, but we've got to keep their names alive, and not just their names, but also, how they helped to move our communities forward. And, that should just be a charge that we all take on because there's so many incredible contributions that go on that we just often don't let our nieces and nephews or children know about. And we have to change that dynamic because nobody else is going to tell our stories.
Julianne.
I especially want to lift up Vincent Ford. As Joe said, people don't know his name. I always saw him as a long distance runner. He ran for office. He had kept his seat for some time. He ran again for something else, didn't win. He broke ranks with the Democratic Party by endorsing Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election. He got a lot of blowback from our people about that. Not because he just got a lot of blowback. Why did you endorse Bernie? Well, he endorsed Bernie because Bernie's principles were more closely aligned to his, and frankly, to ours, than Hillary's were. And so, I saw earlier today 2 Asian women who used to be part of the DNC Finance Committee, both have resigned. One has threatened to go over to the our side, basically saying she's experienced profound disrespect. But what she said is that the Democratic Party sometimes operates like a cult. Sometimes it does. I could tell you stories, but I won't. But what I will say is that Vincent Ford did not believe in the cult. He believed in political independence. He played it out. and he paid a price for it. When he ran, I forgot what he ran for. He ran for, and he endorsed him as a return, and he only got 10% of the vote, which seemed to me to be absurd given the major impact he'd had in Georgia, in the Atlanta area. But part of the lack of votes was those people who believe that the Democratic Party is a religion as opposed to a party, and that people have the right to veer off the plantation. And I'm not using Republican language because they call it a plantation. I call it for other reasons. But veer off basically, we don't have to ride or die with the Democrats. We do not have to be ride or die with them. We will find independent candidates. Because I'd take my fingers and cut them off one by one before I voted for a Republican. That wouldn't serve anybody. But by and large, I just think of him as a hero. Like I said, I remember meeting him at the Democratic Convention '96, and every time we saw each other after that, we'd either high five or bump fists. And he always had great things to say to me about my work. But that's not the point. The point is that he remembered people. He was good to people. He was good people, and he will be missed.
Henderson, Evans, and Ford, we continue to uplift our ancestors in every way, shape, or form. So to all of the families of the three that we spoke about tonight, our hearts are definitely with you, and we'll continue to uplift them as well. And we'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
I had been trying to get a record deal for a long time. When I finally got signed to the Motown record label in 2003, I was 34, 35 years old. And up until that time, I had been trying to get record deals the traditional way. You record your demo, you record your music, and you send it, to the record labels, or maybe a friend of a friend knows somebody that works for, the record label. And really chemistry that was my last ditch effort at being in the music business.
How long have you been trying?
I've been trying since I was a teenager.
Wow.
And I'm grateful that it didn't. I'm grateful that it happened when it happened, because I wasn't prepared, as a teenager to embrace all that comes with a career in the music industry.
Hi, I'm Isaac Gaetz III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
Hey, this is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect anything less? Watch what happens next.
from her Antioch, Tennessee home since November 13th, 2024. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 1 inches tall, weighs 150 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Alexis Daly should call the Metropolitan Nashville, Tennessee Police Department at 615-862-8600. The man accused of murdering a healthcare CEO says he's not guilty. Monday, Luigi Mangione pleaded not guilty to state murder and terror charges in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, as his attorney protested his treatment, saying in court that her client is being used as quote-unquote political fodder by police and the mayor of New York City. Manhattan prosecutors last week unsealed an 11-count indictment against Mangione, charging him with a host of crimes connected to the December 4th slaying. The allegations include first-degree murder, an act of terrorism, criminal possession of a weapon, and forgery for using a fake ID in the days before the murder. The 26-year-old's next court date is February 21st. And Julian, I mean, people are saying, prepare for the circus. Some people are saying that this is the type of attention that he wanted as well.
It is, obviously, he's an attention-seeking person. And this is fascinating because you've got a whole, let the sideshow begin. You've got, he's got a fan club. He's raised money on GoFundMe. He doesn't need it. His family is wealthy, but somebody put up a GoFundMe page for him, and they've raised, I believe, in excess of $100,000. You've got these crazy white women, because I know Sister's not that crazy white women who are crazy on him, about how attractive he is. How can a killer be attractive? No, never mind. But in any case, this is going to be a circus. I don't think that Mayor Adams, he has his own issues. I don't think that he's complicit in any of this. I think this is just a complicated process that has to be played out. Why do I say complicated? He had to be extradited from Pennsylvania. Now he's in New York. He's saying not guilty. They're probably going to do a psych eval because obviously he's not in his right mind, or is he? And as you said, the whole attention seeking, I don't blame the federal officials for, quote, parading him. They're not parading him. This is what happens when you shoot somebody in the middle of the day. And then you run to various jurisdictions and go sit in McDonald's, bold as day. Sit in McDonald's eating your whatever you're eating, quarter pounder, and blessedly somebody turned him in. But this is not going to be your basic trial. But when you get to this level of murder and this level of boldness, it's a bold dude that, whatever. And now pleading not guilty, I mean, the best thing for him to do would be plead guilty, go to jail, and keep his mouth quiet. But he's not going to do that. And so we know that, February 21st is the next court date. This is probably going to drag into a year, if not longer.
And Joe, with your legal lens, how do you see this going? Or what are you fearful of? How do you feel like this process is going to play out?
Well, it's certainly interesting. He's got some high-powered attorneys, so they're going to make the government's plural pick a pony. By that, I mean there's charges in Pennsylvania, which are separate. We knew that they were going to be second in line, but there are charges in New York where he could not get the death penalty on the state side. So now there are federal murder charges. They're federal charges. So those federal charges and those state New York charges overlap somewhat. And I think it's important for a lot of reasons. One, because that might be the difference between it being televised or not, right? A federal trial couldn't be televised, but a judge could decide that a state trial is televised. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether and to what extent that circus is allowed to carry out. And interestingly, Mayor Adams may have had one thought, but when those guys were walking around him, he had gotten off the helicopter and he's walking towards the thing and everybody's surrounding him. Depending on who was looking, you may have seen something different. Mayor Eric Adams and the people that support him and the law and order types may have seen, someone being brought to justice. Other people may see someone who's dashing and good looking and is actually standing in the gap for a story related to a corrupt system that keeps people from getting the health care that they need. Now, maybe that sounds crazy and sick to you or I or whoever else, but there is going to be a larger discussion about healthcare because of this trial. And that might have been all he wanted. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Ultimately, will they convict him? Yeah, I think so. But that being said, there's going to be a lot of maneuvering between now and then, because the state and the federal charges pretty much on the same things in New York is a little bit of overplay, and they're going to force them to pick a pony on that.
Mm-hmm. So, Mustafa, do you think that's going to be the case? Do you think that there's going to be a larger discussion on healthcare, or do you feel like as this trial goes on, the way that we obsess with individuals in this country and make people celebrities, that his trial might actually take the attention off of where Joe says it should be?
Yeah, you know, privilege is interesting, right? So I have to unpack this a couple of ways because, you know, let me call it out what it is. White privilege is interesting because it makes you feel like you can do and say anything and be able to get away with it or justify it, right? So you can unpack that however you want to. You see what this young man, how he's playing it out, what he allegedly did, so forth and so on. So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is I worked on HR 676, was the universal health care bill that Congressman Conyers brought forward. And I used to collect the healthcare horror stories of all these people's lives that had been destroyed because of the healthcare system, and how we had such an incredibly difficult time in getting people to really wrap their arms around the changes that needed to happen to our system to make sure there was real equity and justice built into the healthcare system. So to think about all these mothers and fathers and others who, you know, whether they went into bankruptcy or all these different types of things that happened that destroyed their lives because of the healthcare system, and how they couldn't get traction. And then how this person, because they murdered someone, is able to get traction. And now we want to have a conversation about it.
Right.
It says something about our country, about it takes, it takes an assassination or it takes a lynching to be able to get attention, because we saw that with our dear brother George Floyd. So we're starting to see these types of things play out, that if there's not blood, then we can't seem to get the type of attention that's necessary for us to begin able to move forward and have a 21st century country. So it's just interesting seeing all these different dynamics play out. How it's going to end up, he'll get charged with something more than likely, but we've also seen some other high profile folks inside of our country where there's huge amounts of evidence and they get a chance to walk away. So time will tell, but I hope we do have a serious conversation about the healthcare system, those who are most vulnerable, how their lives, even today with the advances that we've been able to make, how there are still folks who are falling through the cracks, how there are still folks who can't afford their medication, how there are still folks whose lives are being damaged, you know, because we refuse to create a healthcare system like many other countries have.
Well, speaking to your first point on white privilege, let's continue down that route, because a white woman is definitely not on a Santa's good list after her racist tirade against an Amazon delivery driver. Going off of Mustafa's point, look at how mad the woman they're calling Christmas Karen got because she didn't have the correct information to receive her package.
You don't have an Amazon. You want to let me speak? I can't give you the package because you didn't give me the code for this.
I gave you the code that they gave me when I ordered my
And neither
perfume.
of them worked.
Okay, so that's not my problem. You've taken money out of my account.
I'm not taking your money. A
You've
DSP
collected
system.
my money.
It's a third party.
You've collected my money.
I didn't take your money. I don't get any of your money.
It went right there.
I don't
It came
understand
right
what
out of
you're
my
saying.
bank. Package.
I can't.
I'm calling the fucking cops right now.
You're calling the cops?
Yeah.
I'll wait here for you. You're going to tell them I'm not giving your package, so you're going to call the cops on me.
I am.
There's no reason I would need to take this back. I don't want to keep this in the van. I would give this to you if I could.
Bullshit!
Why would I not give this to
You
you?
took the money out of my fucking account
I don't
already.
have your money.
I ordered it off of Amazon. The company
Yeah,
has
I
already
don't
taken my
work
money
for
twice.
Amazon, so I don't take any of that money. I don't know
Why
why
do you
you're...
have an Amazon shirt?
Tell Amazon that. Very Christmassy route, and it sounds like this is taking up a lot of my time.
I'll take your whole fucking day. Go what I can. I don't give a shit. Take a fucking picture, you scumbag piece of shit.
A video. I don't know why you're so...
Oh, God.
Settle down.
I don't know why she's so upset. I can't give her
I want
the
my
package.
fucking package. The money's come out of my fucking account already.
Okay.
Well, we'll
I'll sit here and wait for the cops and tell them, please tell them exactly what this is for. I can't give you the package because you don't have the code to give me it.
Of course, it's my Christmas gift to her, so I should be upset. You know what I mean?
I just left my people's house unlocked to come home because he couldn't wait 2 minutes. Now you're already 15 minutes behind.
Because I'm working. Are you? I'm working my job right now.
I've already gotten paid.
Yeah, did you call the cops yet? Or are you just threatening me? Are you not going to do it because you know that that's a pretty stupid idea? You understand that calling cops wouldn't do anything?
They're not going to do anything, yeah.
That's the thing. It sounds like you're just wasting people's time.
What is?
I wish I could have delivered this. I don't like returning packages, but now I'm stuck in the situation because a very hostile customer that I'm going to have to report.
I am very hostile.
Yeah.
And I will call Amazon.
You're very hostile?
Yes, I am.
You're admitting
absolutely.
that. Are you going to hit me?
Am.
Are you going to hit me for not giving your package?
No, but
you said you're
my
hostile, though.
property now.
Okay.
Because I don't like niggers on my property.
Hey, shut up.
Okay, there it is. Really?
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that. Good. Glad you could tell. All right, have a good one.
Joe, where's the holiday spirit? Where's the spirit, Joe?
I don't know if I should say this, but we're a small group, right? You know, we all family here. You know, even as an attorney, I see this pop up sometimes with certain attorneys on the other side, and I've seen it pop up lately with some women, Caucasian women. Like there's sometimes, not all the time, most of the people that I deal with, but when I have problems with attorneys, and it takes a lot because you're cordial, you're trying to do the things you need to do, you're being professional, just like this brother sounds like that's working his Amazon job, just on his grind, doing what he's got to do. And now you've got this entitled person that wants what she wants, and that could be any of us, right? I'm with you that, but once she took it to that place, basically, so now you can go back to the beginning of the story and get what she saw at the very beginning. All this was a brother that could just give, all he could do for her was give her that thing and get off the property. That's it. Other than that, that's all she could do. That's all he could do for her. Fortunately, he kept his cool, did the things he needed to do, because see, if he had done something to her, listen, we all about peace and all of this other stuff. But sometimes when stuff flies off the handle, there might not be excuses for it, but there are reasons. You understand? And so what you really don't do, you don't want to poke bears. You don't want to get at people that are actually more powerful than you or stronger in a moment, or they can't control their anger. You know what I mean? I'm an attorney. I'm an officer of the court. I'm all of these titles and all these stuff, but I act right because I know that I will get taxed if I don't act right more than even somebody like her. You know what I mean? So if she had to think of it that way, she could have been on the phone with Amazon, done 5 or 6 things, or maybe even just got the code right at the jump go. Okay? It didn't have to be all this, but she's lucky because if she was dealing with a sister, she might ended up being on the ground.
Hello.
Well, Sister Malvo.
I got a can of whip ass for folks like her. A big old can, like the supersized can. I mean, I have to commend the brother for his composure. He didn't go off on her. He didn't yell at her. You know, he basically maintained his cool. But you know, she could have crossed the wrong one. Let that not happen over here at 1318. It would be on.
That's right. That's right.
But let me say this though, it's interesting. I'm trying so hard to boycott Amazon, but I'm trying so hard because I'm so angry with Jeff Bezos for the non-endorsement. But boycotting Amazon is like, for me, because I use it so often, boycotting water. I mean, you really need it. Right. But I'm gonna get there. I promise. I'm trying to do DoorDash or something like that. But they have often made it challenging, depending on when and where and how. They send you this code on Wednesday for the package that comes on Friday. Unless you saved it in your phone, you don't have the code. So she probably didn't have the code, and she was frustrated because she didn't get her package. But that is no excuse. And as soon as she behaved like a racist before she dropped the N-word bomb. She behaved like an entitled piece of you-know-what before she dropped the N-word bomb. She was very confrontive, and she can say, oh, yes, I'm angry. Oh, well, get over yourself. Everybody's angry when they don't get their stuff on time. But Amazon might want to tweak their delivery process some kind of way. And we're warning to all of us, when they send you those codes, they're not playing. They do mean for you to use the code, and if you don't have the code, you won't get your package. She really was cruising for a bruising, and I wish she had encountered one of my siblings. See, y'all know me as the loud, crazy one, but I'm also little. I'm relatively little. My sister's, one of them weighs 100 pounds more than me. You do not want to fool with her. You know, you just do not want to fool with her. And it wouldn't even be a conversation, just shoop, that's it. White women need to check themselves. And it really is, the Karen word works because these white women have decided that they don't have to have any respect for Black people. And they have been goaded by the incoming administration, which also has no respect for us. And so we have a lot of work to do to make sure these people who want to call themselves allies when it's convenient. No, y'all not our allies. Y'all just PWT. Even when we ain't P, still WT.
And Mustafa, how do you see that? I mean, we're going into 2025. I feel like this stuff's going to be happening more and more people are emboldened. I'm also concerned, kind of going off of what Joe said, that some of us might be more emboldened to retaliate in ways that we probably shouldn't, because it never works out in our favor. But some people say enough is enough.
Well, we always have to be smart about the decisions that we make, even in those heated moments, because there are, there are ramifications, right? And we understand that. There's a long history of that. We also understand that, as you said, there are a group of folks who feel emboldened. They feel emboldened because of not only the election, but also probably over the last, decade or so of all kinds of egregious things happening to our community, and it never really being addressed in the fullness and the fashion. Now, we can take it back much further than that, but I'm just watching the trends that go by. My grandmother used to say not to suffer fools gladly. And I always remember that, because I just don't put up with foolishness. There's ways of dealing with it. There are ways of confronting it head on. There's also times when you need to just remove yourself from situations so that you can continue to do the things that you need to do. But we also got to just remember that, it was interesting how this closed out, and not just the word that she used, but for her family member to not also check her, says that this is not a word that is new to them. It is probably something that is utilized from time to time at a minimum. So we just got to be mindful of the moment that we find ourselves in. And also how we want to react, and how we do or do not want to give people power by how we, handle different types of situations. So we just got to rally around and make sure that as we're moving forward, that we understand the dynamics that 2025 and beyond will bring.
Well, let's close this part out by talking about a man who understood that better than most. The Mississippi man who fought white supremacy by integrating the University of Mississippi in 1962 gets a new historical marker in his hometown. Black civil rights icon James Meredith now lives in Mississippi's capital city of Jackson. He was born in Kosciuszko, and grew up on a nearby farm. He graduated from high school in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1951, and served 9 years in the Air Force before returning to Mississippi. He attended Jackson State College, the historically Black school now called Jackson State University, for 2 years before suing to gain admission as the first Black student at the University of Mississippi. In 1962, Meredith was surrounded by a white mob when he registered at Ole Miss, and U.S. Marshals protected him on and off the Oxford campus. He graduated a year later with a degree in political science. The university has honored him several times in the decades since then. Today, about 10% of the university students are Black. And Julian, this kind of sums up so much of what we've been talking about in terms of history makers, but this is one who's still with us today.
My mom was the first African-American to teach at Ole Miss. She taught in the School of Social Work. And when I used to go down there, she started there, I think, in 73. When I used to go down there just to hang out with her, the racism was just palpable. I actually couldn't get a cab one time because I had a dashiki on. The man told me he was not transporting Africans. So my mom had to send somebody to come get me. But anyway, neither here nor there. Ole Miss was a traditional racist place. And in many ways, it still is. But of course, we've come a long way, baby. Meredith was clearly beyond courageous to be willing to confront that mess. They had the old Reb Mississippi flag flying until just a few years ago. And they had segregated dorms at a point in time. So he willingly walked into that. But the economic piece of this is such. Ole Miss is a flagship university, University of Mississippi's technical name, Ole Miss, flagship university, flagship law school for the state of Mississippi. Black people pay tax dollars too. So our tax dollars were subsidizing segregation. Not good. And so basically Meredith attempted to shake that up. He had a lot of challenges, but he held his head up and he made a contribution for those young people who now attend Ole Miss.
Mustafa.
Yeah, I mean, we always got to make sure we're uplifting Mr. Meredith for everything that he did. It's interesting, when you share the statistics that at the University of Mississippi is only 10% Black now, with a state that has a significant, population of Black folks. So that just goes to show that even though we remove some of the segregation, it still exists. But, we want to make sure that we thank all of those who sacrificed. I was blessed. Vivian Malone Jones was one of my mentors, and hearing some of the stories that she went through and so many others at a time when people often say, well, I would have done the same thing. For the vast majority of people, no, you wouldn't. Right. Because you don't understand how much pressure was put upon you, how your life was actually under threat and all the things that go with that. So, we got to make sure we continue to uplift them. As many opportunities as there are, whether it's statutes or fellowships or whatever it is, we just got to make sure that, that everything that they gave continues to live on. But we also got to do better. My grandmother says, when you know better, do better. There are so many colleges and universities across the country that put on these veneers about diversity, equity, inclusion. They put on veneers about being, 21st century organizations. And when you peel them back, you see that some things are still similar to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, even though there have been some advances. So to Mr. Meredith, thank you for everything that you have done and everything I know you still continue to do as long as you have breath.
No doubt. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, ditto, and ditto. This is another opportunity for us to continue to cherish and listen to someone from the civil rights movement. There are not many of us left. There are not many of us brothers and sisters that were doing the things in the 50s and the 60s that integrated lunch counters and integrated schools. Let's get those stories direct while we can before they become ancestors. It's great that we recognize him and that he's one of the more name brand ones, right? That more of us know about. But let's make sure we take every account and get every piece of information we can, particularly insight as it pertains to strategy, as it pertains to what allowed them to keep their composure and to keep themselves while they were integrating and being the first and had vile and hate thrown at them while they did it. We've got to get that and make sure we capture that and internalize it for ourselves so that we can deal with those moments as well. Let's get everything we can from him, not only from his words, but from his actual example so that we can take it and go down the road with it to help us in the fights to come.
That's right. And that's why we're here to continue to tell his story and the story of so many others. We'll be right back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Isaac Gaetz III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you helped build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I was challenged by my uncle early on, before I even had a career. Like, I was maybe 8 years old, and my uncle said, "What do you want to do?" And I told him I wanted to be a rapper. And he said, "Okay, well, I don't know anything about the music business, so what you should do is learn everything there is to know about the music business, and I'll make sure that you have the resources to push you through." And so I went and bought books, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, Hitman. I just went and bought a bunch of books and just started reading as a 10-year-old, just reading. And so I learned, all things licensing, mechanical rights. I learned about publishing, learned about how composition is broke up into two pieces, the writer's portion and the producer's portion. But by the time I actually learned, I came back and I was ready to okay, I got it. He would go into prison. So I had all this information.
All this knowledge.
All this knowledge.
You like, well, what I'm going to do with it now?
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Cyrus, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood show and the Roland Martin show? Well, whatever show it's going to be good.
And we are back, and we have with us Isaac Hayes III, the founder of Fanbase, who's going to give us a little bit of an update about what's going on at Fanbase as we approach the end of this year. I am somebody who's very proud to be an investor in Fanbase as well. And so, Mr. Hayes, I'm excited to have you here. Please keep us informed all of the time, but what's happening right now?
Man, we are in a push right now, right before the holidays, to get a lot of people to give the gift of equity as a gift, right, for Fanbase. So we've had this crowdfund going, and it's picked up a lot of steam because of the instability with TikTok, the craziness with Elon, and the understanding that moving into 2025, we're going to have to be our own saviors and really build infrastructures that we own. So right now, the raise just crossed $4.2 million raised, which is an incredible, mark for us. We're raising 17 million, but I want to say that the minimum to invest in Fanbase is only $399, and that gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. And so, as many people as that watch this program in a day could close our raise, right? 32,000 people investing the minimum of $399 could catapult us to close, and I could really catch TikTok by January 19th and build a lot of other things that people want, including our new vertical called Fanbase Spark, which is like our version of Twitter. So there's a lot going on, but I wanted to come on and really express the importance of coming in 2025. We are all we got. We already see what's going to happen with the administration, but we have to own these infrastructures. And so I think it's extremely important we do that. It's a lot going on right now in tech.
And before I go to the panel, you said by January 19th, you can catch them if we do our part.
Yeah, because the Supreme Court hears arguments from TikTok on January 10th. Their argument is going to be about freedom of speech, but it was never about freedom of speech with TikTok. It was about the fact that the Chinese government owned a part of ByteDance. And if the Chinese government divested from ByteDance, then TikTok will be allowed to stay. The Chinese government refused. And so it's a 50-50 toss-up that TikTok will make it past January 19th. We've seen a large spike in users come to the platform because we are the only platform currently that allows you to migrate up to 1,000 of your TikTok videos over to Fanbase as a backup. There's no other platform to do that. Anybody that's trying to go to these other platforms that try to mimic TikTok, at least with Fanbase, you can do that with Instagram, you can do that with TikTok. I filed a patent for this content migrator we built so that you're not starting from scratch. So I don't want people to lose their content. I want people to have their content and be able to monetize their content. So that's extremely important. So January 19th is the date that TikTok, the fate of TikTok will be determined if it gets banned.
And that migration works, y'all. Trust me, I have used it. Questions from the panel. Mustafa.
You know, there may be some folks who hadn't seen you on the show before. Could you sort of share with them, you know, sort of what that moment of reflection was in the creation of Fanbase?
I mean, it's a couple things. I often reflect on the fact that Black culture is just the gasoline to so many infrastructures in our world. It's entertainment and sports and technology and fashion and food. And we contribute a lot to these infrastructures, but at the end of the day, it's always a small group of people that own these infrastructures. And I wanted to build something, one, that Black people and anybody had an opportunity to own and invest in on the back end. But then on the front end, anybody that uses Fanbase has the ability to monetize their content by simply creating an account. So you can get tipped for your content, or if you want, you can have subscribers for your content. And so that's important. So my decision to build Fanbase was one out of understanding that Black culture and youth culture are the heartbeat of social media, and we have to own these infrastructures. If we don't, we're going to get left behind in 2025. We have to start building things that we own.
Julian.
Bro, first of all, thank you for creating this fan-based platform. I happen to be an investor like Congo, as I think you're on with Roland a while back. And I said, well, you know, I'm not rolling in dough, but I got to do a little something just to support this. However, there are all kinds of things going on with Fanbase. And as an investor, I feel like I'm kind of ignorant. I really don't know what all is going on and how I can maximize my visibility through using Fanbase. Could you give me some suggestions, or is there a newsletter that you have?
So if you are an investor, you should get an investor newsletter at all times, number one. Two, when you invest in Fanbase, your shares are held in your Start Engine account. So when you go to startengine.com/Fanbase to invest, that is the custodian of your shares. We do the raise through Start Engine. So you can always check on your stock there. So if you have any updates, any questions, you can go through Start Engine. But once you become an investor, you get an investor newsletter. On top of that, you have an audio town hall.
I've never received an investor newsletter, but I know y'all took my money. Not y'all took my money, but I invested my money. I know I did that because it came out of my account. I can see it, but I've never seen a newsletter.
Yeah, so you should hit support@fanbase.app to be part of the newsletter. And then we also do an investor town hall and audio room. So Fanbase has audio chat, like Clubhouse and X Spaces. And so we have a Tuesday town hall every Tuesday where we talk about what's going on with the raise and the progress that we made. And so I think those are the really important things that when you invest in Fanbase, it's like a 5-step process. The first thing is you go to startengine.com/Fanbase to invest. That's the first thing. You make an account. Two, when you invest your money remains in escrow, which means we don't have it and you don't have it. And then they do a compliance check. Once that happens, you'll get an email, confirmation email to confirm your investment. And then your investment's confirmed. Then your money goes into a disbursement queue for us to put in our account. Once that money hits our account, you are a Fanbase investor. But I repeat, consider Start Engine as the wallet for your shares, for your stock, right? And we actually post updates on the Start Engine page. If you even scroll down to the bottom of the Start Engine page, you'll see updates that we do multiple times a week. But also, as an investor, you should absolutely be part of that email. So if you're not, email support@fanbase.app. And then join the town hall, the audio town hall inside the app every Tuesday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, no doubt. Juliana, we'll talk afterwards. I'll make sure how you get hooked up because I get all the newsletters and all of that. So we'll make sure we get that taken care of. Joe, final question.
Glad to see you here again, Brother Hayes. I'm an investor as well. What's the easiest way people can find out information about the content migrator and things like that? Like, because those of us that aren't super techies, you know how we take a picture and then we want to take the picture, link it, put it on IG, put it on X or Y or Z, but maybe we don't see Fanbase right away like that on our phone. Well, what are the ways for us to learn how to use and integrate Fanbase so that it's just as easy for us, not only in actuality, but in perception, for us to use it and maximize it just like it is for the other apps?
So, well, in settings, you can always, the content migration part of Fanbase is in settings. You go to the settings inside your app, and it'll say import from Instagram or TikTok to bring your content over. That's extremely important because, again, it puts your content in a place where people can tip it. We have people that join Fanbase, they make a couple of dollars, few dollars the first couple of hours they're on the platform because people are actually tipping them for their content. They're giving this thing called love. So on Fanbase, you can like posts for free if you on any platform, but you can also tip content, which is called love. And so when you tip that content, you give that person half a penny, and people buy that love in our subscription store. And that love, the only thing you can do with love is give it to someone else. And people are very, very transactional on the platform. And so people are, tipping and showing people love and being very transactional. So that's one way, like I said, to import your content. The best practices I would say is importing your content, make sure that you have a profile picture up, and then start going around and really explore the parts of the app. Fanbase has 6 content formats, right? So we have posts, which are stories and videos. We have live, we have audio chat, we have stories, we have short form video, which is like TikTok, we call Flicks, and we have long form video called Fanbase Plus, which is like YouTube. And so all of those together create the ecosystem of Fanbase, which anybody can monetize from day one, but you can also be entertained, connect with friends, create content, post content. And I think that we have no tech infrastructure that we own. These platforms are very vulnerable, and they really don't exist without a lot of the things that the Black community provide and young people provide. And we've seen how we get treated on these platforms. One, just the way that we get treated. And then 2, the instability that's in the market. Like TikTok could literally go away. And there have been a lot of people making videos on TikTok about how they can import their content to Fanbase and do so. But what I want to stress again one more time is we are in the holiday season. It is a couple of days before Christmas. People are going to get money for Christmas, or people are looking for Christmas gifts to buy. I'm telling you right now, 32,000 people, investing the minimum of $399 allows us to close this raise. And what I mean by that is the money that we raise with Fanbase allows us to build a product faster. I can build anything, if people that have used Fanbase know how awesome it is, but it gives us the ability to close the gap in between these platforms that are very vulnerable right now. And investing is something that we're going to have to do. You cannot save your way to wealth. You cannot save your way to wealth. They're going to push gambling commercials in front of your eyes. They're going to tell you to use these betting apps. They're going to tell you to play the lottery, but no one's going to tell you to invest, right? No one's going to tell you, look, investing is what we have to do. So go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest in Fanbase today. If not buying shares for you, buy shares for your kids, your grandkids, your relatives, your friends. But I really want to close this raise as fast as I can, because there's a lot on the line. And again, there's a 7th content format that people have asked for that we talked about and spoke that we're going to build in 2025 called Spark. And Spark is our version of Twitter. So Black Twitter's never had a home, and we can build that. We're going to build Spark in 2025, which is our version of Twitter. So this is the call. Like I said, people, this is the end of the year. I know the gift giving is going to be going crazy, and millions of people watch Roland Martin. And in the Black community, there's 48 million Black people in the United States of America. I'm looking for 32,000 Black, the 48 million, to be investors and own part of this platform for $399. That's it. That's the Christmas gift that I've been looking for. That's the Christmas gift that I want, is I want to be able to, we ride the success of Fanbase to the top. We have equity in these platforms. We make billion-dollar companies, and Fanbase is not going to stop. We have close to 1 million users on Fanbase. Our MAU is over 400,000. We're generating revenue. It's a lot involved. And so I just want to make sure that 2025 is a signature moment for the platform where we scale.
Yeah, so we're talking about Christmas. Let's also talk about Kwanzaa. We got Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics, you all. You got an opportunity to have ownership in a Black company. What better holiday gift can there be? So please, you all, get out there, support Isaac Hayes III, support Fanbase. We need this now more than ever, especially with what's going on with all of these other platforms that he has so eloquently talked about tonight. So Mr. Isaac Hayes III, we appreciate you, and we're going to keep building this together. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you. There is no more DEI. It's WEEI. We have to support each other and invest. So startengine.com/Fanbase. Thank you all.
I love that. WEEI. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's going to do it for Roland Martin Unfiltered. I want to thank Joe and Julian and Mustafa, the panels tonight, for joining us. And please, y'all, always follow us on the Black Star Network. Catch us for another show. We are here for y'all. We are here for the people. I will see you next time. Holla.
Peace. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the
voice of Black America, Roland. Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?